Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. Thank you for joining us. This webinar is in partial fulfillment of the requirements of our professional communication class with Dr. Agnaou. Our topic of the day will be conflict management using the DiSC model in the workplace. We have with us guest speakers. First, we have Narjiss El Khairani, an HR specialist. Then Nezar Louali and Amira Baatair, developmental psychologists. Then finally, Asmae Alaoui, a public relations specialist. I want to tell the audience that they are welcome to share their opinions and thoughts and questions with us through the comments. Since we will be talking about conflict management, I would like to start by talking about conflict. So, conflict can be in our personal and professional lives. It can be caused by differences in opinions or beliefs or point of views. In the workplace, it can happen between teammates working on the same project or just co-workers within the same company. Conflicts can also be caused by different communication noises. We can talk about physical noise like construction sounds or doors opening and closing or a conflict nearby. There's also psychological noise. It includes thinking about your personal problems in the workplace, like worries about money or a tight daily schedule, which can make a person very stressed and not really willing to accept any criticism or feedback from the others. There's physiological noise, which includes feeling sick or being hungry or being in a room that is too cold or too hot, which can make us really irritated. Finally, there's semantic noise, and it's literally people having different meanings for the same word, or people coming from different cultures and having special jargon, which can cause misunderstanding in a conversation and even lead to a conflict. So, conflict management is really important and essential in the workplace to keep a healthy and positive environment. So, our first speaker of the day, Narjiss, will tell us more about conflict management. Narjiss, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Hiba. Of course, today I want to talk about the conflict management. Of course, many people might ask, what is conflict management? First, conflict management is simply trying to solve conflicts in the workplace. In this way, we can minimize the losses and also find ways to not affect the productivity and the motivations of the workers in the workplace. Uh, for this, we need strategies. This is why there is strategies to avoid the conflict in the workplace. First, we should always discuss minor problems so as not to worry about them later. Then we should use emails and other official ways of communication. In this way, we can always inform all the participants in our meeting or in our conflict. Then we can always use different ways of communication because it is very important to communicate with others to avoid conflicts, whether it is verbal or non-verbal. Then we should always develop a habit of using planners so as to avoid forgetting what we should not forget, and of course avoid being pointed at. we should separate our private and professional life. Problems in the office stays on the office, and problems in the private life stays there. Next, we have conflict management skills. In conflict management skills, we have first effective communication skills, which is very important to know how to talk to people and how to deal with them. We have listening skills, in which we have to listen to others and not interrupt them and ask if we don't understand. Then we should discuss the point of disagreement, where we don't agree with the other party. We should partially explain our point of view. We should not be partial to one side and leave the other. In a conflict, we should be just. Never criticize. We don't criticize others because we all have our own faults, and we all have our own way of thinking. Finally, we have to maintain a positive attitude and ignore others and trivial provocations. Then we have, of course, the management skills. We have the conflict management. We have the conflict management styles, which are five. Which rely on what on the importance of relationship versus the importance of achieving a goal. In which, when we want to emphasize on the importance of relationship, we have to use one strategy. If we want to emphasize on the importance of the goal, we have to emphasize on the other, or to take another route. In this way, we have first avoiding, in which both parties lose and nobody take anything, because we just avoid the conflict. We don't care about it. In this way, we don't care about the relationships, neither the goals. Then we have accommodating. In this way, we yield to others. In this way, the others win and we don't. But we maintain our good relationship. We have also compromising. In the compromise approach, we can we can give up some things and win other stuff. Competing, of course, we seek to win or to reach our goals with any cost, even if it's at the cost of our relationship. Collaborating is both parties win. In this way, we maintain our goals together with our relationship. Thank you, Hiba, for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Narjiss. Now that we know the different strategies, styles, and skills of conflict management, it's time to introduce the DiSC model that can also be used as a strategy to solve conflicts in the workplace. Nezar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Hiba. So the DiSC model is a personal assessment tool which is used to improve productivity, teamwork, and communication. It deals solely with the behavioral and communication styles. So first of all, one of the golden rules in communication is to adapt to others. The mistake that often happens is that people tend to speak to others the way they accept others to speak to them. However, other people also want us to talk to them as they wish. So, in this case, everybody wants the others to adapt to them unconsciously. The same is true within a team. Indeed, in a team, each member is unique and has his or her own vision, expectations, needs, and way of communicating. And to achieve collective goals, each member will also have his own way of proceeding, analyzing, and treating the subject. So, in these situations, what can appear as a simple misunderstanding can quickly turn into serious conflicts between a group of team workers. To avoid these conflicts, Using the DiSC model can lead to a lot of benefits, including a more effective communication, which means that a person belonging to the D profile, who are often categorized as being the most energetic kind of people, will be inspired to speak more calmly to a person uh, belonging to the S profile, for example. It will also allow you a better targeted management, which means that knowing well the profiles of each one of your employees will allow you to distribute tasks more efficiently according to the objectives and to the constraints. It will also allow a better communication, both orally or in writing, especially using emails and because each profile has its own characteristics. Finally, it will teach you how to adapt to a specific context by, for example, choosing the best team members that will help you the most to achieve specific goals. So, the DISC model was proposed to us following the work of the American psychologist William Marston. He basically explains to us how emotions may lead to changes in behaviors between groups of people and how one person's behavior can change over time. In DISC, the letters refer to dominance for D, influence for I, steadiness for S, and consciousness for C. Thank you, Hiba, for giving me the floor, and thank you, the audience, for your attention.
Thank you, Nezar. Now that we reached the middle of our webinar, I want to thank the audience for their comments and for staying with us, and also welcome the people that just joined. Our webinar today is about conflict management using the DISC model in the workplace. So far, we talked about conflict, how to manage conflicts in the workplace, and we introduced the DISC model. If what I just mentioned is confusing to you, don't worry. A recorded version will be available as soon as this live ends. And of course, your questions, opinions, and thoughts are very welcome. Now we will move to understanding each personality type and know their characteristics to know ourselves better. Amira, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Hiba. So welcome to this segment of this webinar where we understand our own style in the module of DISC. Now I would like to ask for the collaboration of my teammates in this part, and I ask the audience too to participate following the example I'm going to give. So I'm going to start with our moderator, Hiba. Hello.
Hello.
So Hiba, I'm going to ask you a question. Are you an introvert or extrovert?
I believe I'm an introvert.
Okay, my next question is, are you more task direct or people indirect?
Task direct.
Well, in this case, you will end up being highly conscious. This is the trait you will end up with. So, for our next colleague, Asmae. Hello, Asmae.
Hello, Amira.
How are you doing? So, my question is for you the same thing. Are you an introvert kind of person or extrovert?
I'm more of an extrovert.
Okay, and are you task-oriented or people-oriented?
People-oriented, actually.
Okay, that will mean you end up being in the same kind of down on the cycle. So Narjiss, how about you? Are you an extrovert or introvert?
I believe I'm an introvert.
Are you more task-oriented or people-oriented?
I believe people oriented.
So you're the same as Asma, I think. And Nezar, finally, what do you think? Which letter do you think you're assigned?
I think I'm more of an I person because I'm extroverted and people oriented.
Okay, for me, I'm an introvert and more task direct, so that will give me the C letter from the DISC model. As you have all seen, my audience, this is the kind of question that you ask yourself to get a quick kind of assessment of which letter are you assigned in the DiSC module. Now, the DiSC module overview is 4 letters or 4 styles. Each style could be you have 1 or 2 predominant behaviors, but display one of them. So, what is this DiSC module? The D stands for dominance. The I stands for influence. The C stands for consciousness, and the C stands for steadiness. Now let's get into more details. Let's start with the dominance. Who are the dominants? If you, after this little activity, found out that you are assigned the D letter, you are more active. You are the winner. You are the person who is strong-willed. You are more strong-willed. You display your opinions and you tell your opinions bluntly and seriously. You're controlling and competitive and confront everyone around you. You're focused on your goals, and that's why they're assigned the title of the winners. They are mostly the leaders in a team. Next, the I. The I are the enthusiasts. Why would you call them the enthusiasts? Well, they're extroverted, they're fun, they're motivational. They tend to be the person who's persuasive inside the team. They often don't go through a lot of thinking. They tend to be ambitious and they tend to be creative in the team. The next letter are the consciousness. The steadiness. They are the people who are passive and they are more people oriented. They tend to be collaborative in the team. They're steady, sympathetic. They're the good listeners. They tend to like the details and they prefer to follow through. They're slow to move and conservative, and they tend to resist a little bit if there is any change. And lastly, the consciousness. They are the analysis of the team. They are more task-oriented, like the dominants, but they are very passive. They tend to focus on finding the solutions rather than focusing on the problems. They are reserved. They tend to focus on the data and finding any kind of way to solve the problem correctly. They are reserved to themselves, creative and talented. Now, as I said before, each individual could have 1 or 2 kind of behavioral symptoms. They display 2 kinds of DiSC model. There is no ideal DiSC style, but each individual has a unique style. Now let's say that someone has both the dominant and the influential. They are the risk takers. They're bold, they're influential, they persuade everyone in the team, they're fast-paced, and they focus on the goal. They are result-driven, so they have both the traits of the dominant and the influential. Let's take another example. The collaborators. This is the person who's steady and at the same time who's influencer. They are people oriented, they're active and at the same time passive. It could change according to the situation they're in. They're outgoing, they're collaborative, they're listeners, and they're sincere. They are the support system of the team. Another example, and in fact my last example for this webinar, the perfectionist. They have 2 of the letters, which are C and D, the dominance and the consciousness. They're ambitious, decisive, questioning, and analytics. They're called the perfectionists because they have the dominant kind of side where they are all about the winning. They want to control, they have the drive, they make things happen. They are logical and decisive at the same time. They see the problem and they look for the answer immediately. And they want to achieve the goals as good as they can, meaning they have to be perfect results. These kind of traits don't have just these 4 styles. There are in fact sub-12 styles for this module. This is the details that I can provide for you to know much more about each type, and I'll leave the floor to my classmate.
Thank you, Amira. We now know more about each personality's characteristics and strengths, so it's time to discover how to use this knowledge in the workplace with other people. Asmae will share with us tips to make our communication better and more efficient to boost productivity and avoid conflicts. Asmae, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Hiba, and hello, everyone. So, as a public relations specialist, I think it's crucial to now talk about how to adapt your communication with different styles by knowing how each DiSC personality contributes to a team. And I'm going to start off with the preferred DiSC communication styles of the D profiles. So, D profiles usually communicate in one direction, which means they talk and expect others to listen. They express their own ideas and opinions as facts, meaning their opinions need no further discussion. They may be blunt and challenging to talk to in such a way that your interactions with the D profile may feel like a competition. You will need to stand toe to toe to argue, and since they want to lead and complete tasks quickly, they may often interrupt and not ask for input from others. So, to interact more effectively with the D profile, then I suggest that you focus on your responsibilities and outcomes. Try keeping pace by moving quickly, and also it is crucial to not frustrate their desire and urge to take action, because they always want to be in control. So you have to make them feel like they have power. Now I'm going to move on to the preferred DiSC communication styles of the I profiles. And I profiles communicate in an inspiring way. They will sell their ideas and visions. I profiles will talk a lot and prefer to look at the big picture instead of details. They focus on the positive and tend to avoid unpleasant subjects. They are good at providing positive and constructive feedback, but they may not always be direct. So when you're interacting with an I profile, I suggest that you stay focused on the positive, because an I personality type person gets their energy from positive emotions. You'll have to move quickly, but spend time chatting. Try to show interest when they are talking, but you may also need to control their activities to ensure they are focused when required, since they tend to jump from task to task. Now I'm going to move on to the preferred DiSC communication styles of the S profiles. And the S profiles, like the D profiles, also prefer one-directional communication. However, they prefer interactions in one-on-one settings. They answer when asked, but otherwise they prefer listening to speaking. They tend to speak calmly, and they look to create trust during the interaction. They prefer to talk about topics that they have mastered, and in addition, they will explain things thoroughly. So, some tips for interacting successfully with the S profile include slowing down and explaining in detail. Also, give them time to think and talk about it with others, and do not pressure them. Remember to warn them about any possible changes, and remember to focus on benefits to their teams and people close to them. Last but not least, it is really important to build trust with the NEST profile by keeping your promises and demonstrating the right attitude towards work. So the preferred DiSC communication styles of the S profiles are the fact that the S profiles often prefer to use written communication like emails, prove that they not readily like to talk, and they do not readily express disagreeing views, but they want detailed, fact-based information to assure that they are making the correct decision. Since C profiles focus so much on details and data, they may miss the big picture. they prefer conversations where they don't have to focus on your opinions or abstract matters, and they can be extremely diplomatic too. So some tips for improving interactions with the C profile include giving them time to think, and when you are answering their questions, make sure to explain carefully and give sound reasons and data whenever possible. Also, be patient with the details and ideally provide information in writing and ahead of time. So the key to conflict resolution, as you can see, is understanding and communication. So once you understand where another person is coming from, and then you can begin to find common ground. If you can use this empathy desire to compromise in combination with speaking each other's language, you are back on track towards harmony and peace in the workplace. So these help us understand why people do the things they do and how they want to be spoken to. And with this knowledge, you can resolve and prevent interpersonal conflicts like a champ. Now I'm going to talk about how to become a more effective team member, harnessing style awareness. So using the DiSC theory or any other personality theory, honestly, can help you predict your team's actions and personality types. However, you have to know that personality types do not represent hard and fast categories. So you may have recognized some of the types in one person in your team, or even perhaps within yourself. But you have to ditch the temptation to pigeonhole yourself or your team members into one type only, because you have also to be mindful to not define one behavioral type as a strength and another as a weakness, especially when it comes to leadership qualities, because it is all a matter of fits. So returning to the DiSC model, for instance, while it could be said that the D type are dominant and natural born leaders, and the fact that the S type are submissive and steady and supportive, that does not that makes them more likely to be the followers of these dominant leaders. Well, that is not true, because many in the field of leadership and management are reevaluating how they estimate and how they assess leadership qualities by emphasizing more on emotional intelligence rather than just emotional charisma. Because the DiSC model indicates how we prefer to do things and what's our comfort zone. Each style has strengths and areas of development. So once you know what your personality profile is and what your team members' personality profiles are, you can use them to be more effective in the workplace. You can use these profiles to your advantage to improve your team's overall productivity and efficiency by preventing misunderstandings, miscommunications, and personality clashes.
Thank you, Asma. Um, we will start a Q&A session soon, so now is the time to share questions if you want to know more about a point we discussed. I'm sure that by now you have an idea about your personality type after our activity with Amira and the explanation given about each type. And I want to use this opportunity to encourage all our audience to take the DiSC personality test. We actually have a link in the description of our live for a free DiSC personality test. It's a very short test that can take you from 5 to 10 minutes, and it's recommended to actually answer the question as fast as possible to have accurate results. Now we're gonna start our Q&A session. I can see that we have a lot of comments. Thank you so much for thinking that our webinar is interesting. Now, we're gonna try to, okay, we have a question here from Ouija Ayoub. Why is using communication styles in the workplace important? Who wants to answer this question?
I would like to take this opportunity to answer, if it's okay.
Thank you.
So, using the communication style in a workplace is important because not every time you know the person in front of you. So, you need to know at least two information or a general information about this person to know how to deal with them. So, let's say you're a D kind of person, and this person is a steady kind of person. So, in this case, you're more goal oriented and you're more about the results at that moment, while the steady person needs time to think, they need to gather their information, they need to state their opinion slowly and collectively, which is opposite from you. So you need to know this kind of information so you can lead a productive or proactive kind of discussion with your teammate.
Thank you, Amira, for your answer. Does any of our speaker want to add to what Amira said? No? Okay. So we're gonna look for other questions. We have a question here. It says, which personality should we be more careful with? Amira, go ahead.
So this is more in the my perspective of the webinar. So there is no one personality that you should be careful with. As a matter of fact, you should be more careful about your own personality. You should know your strength and your weakness at the same time. Again, let's take, for example, the influence kind of person. Their points of weaknesses could be they're blunt and they fear the disapproval and social absences. This doesn't mean they're not good at what they're doing, they're not persuasive or something like this. No, it's the total opposite. It's just that their more predominant trait is being influencer and being in the spotlight. So in this case, they're not really failing at their job or their personality, but they're more about wanting to be in the spot of the light just to produce more. So my answer is you don't have to be careful with any type of personality. You have to be careful and minded of your own personality and try to understand the others better.
I completely agree with you, Amira. I think it's an important point to actually know how to work better with other personality types rather than thinking that one type is more, that we should fear a certain type.
Mm. I mean, this connects to the part that Asma talked about when you're dealing and harnessing which kind of attitude you should use while dealing with each profile. Like she mentioned in her segment, there's type of things that you can do that helps you in the team. So maybe just read a little bit about each personality and educate yourself. So my advice, just know yourself, know your personality better, know your weakness and your good points, and try to get to know the other points too. So, in case this person is not more talkative, you can just kind of see if they're extrovert or introvert. They're more task oriented or people oriented. This way, you get a kind of sense which is the dominant kind of trait.
Thank you, Amira, for your further explanation.
Any other
We
questions?
have another question. How to manage conflict dependent on each personality type within the DiSC model. Asma, do you think you can answer this question?
I think that Narjiss could answer this question about conflict management.
Narjiss?
Yes, of course. When it comes to complex management styles, we simply we see how others are behaving in behaving, and also the situation. When we want usually to we want usually to to solve a conflict, we should ask three questions. First, how much do we value our relationships with others, or rather, what do we value more? Is it the relationships with others, or do we value the goals we want to achieve? Second, we should also know the consequences. Of course, we have to have an overview of what will happen if we take a course of action. For example, if I am with a manager and I have a disagreement with him, and I am of course just an employee, I can just go in a conflict with him. So I need to take a proper strategy that will help me minimize my losses. Or of course, here is another example. If there is, for example, a customer, and I am, for example, a salesperson, and he is someone who is unreasonable. How should I deal with him? Of course, I should accommodate him, because the situation does not allow me to just avoid him or do anything else. So here is how we usually use the conflict management styles. Thank you.
Thank you, Narjiss, so much. That was very a clear explanation. Does anyone want to add a point, or should we move to a next question? Moving to the next question, we have a question from Ibtisam. Are there specific tasks that should be assigned to specific personality traits? Go ahead, Amira.
So thank you first for the question. And no, my answer is there isn't specific tasks. There is specific task in the team. As you heard us talk before, we're using the team kind of model to display which part you should take. So should the person who's influencer just take the task of being influenced on the other teams or in the marketing team? It's different. Each person is to their own what they want to do in their life and all of that. But should they take a specific task? Maybe if that's what they want. But that goes back to how the team is built. If you have a certain type of person, like if you're steadiness or you're a risk taker, this person should be in the kind of management team where they can decide and take the decisions quick. Marketing teams, they could use the influence trait, where this person can influence a large group of people. They can be persuasive. They have the charisma to be in that kind of spotlight, and they have the trusting nature where everyone kind of tend to listen to them. It's like magnet charm for them. So yeah, that's my answer to specific tasks. Maybe at some kind of level they should be assigned specific tasks, but this is an example of them. Maybe if you're a steady kind of person, give them something to do that has to do with cooperative, being patient. They thrive to keep ground in the team. If you're an influencer kind of person, maybe be in a marketing team where you should persuade people to buy the product. If you're a dominant kind of person, you thrive to be the decision maker. So I hope this helps.
Thank you so much, Amira, for your explanation. I actually have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Would it be better to have a diversity of personality types within the same team, or should a team be composed of the same personality type?
If that's a very good question, actually. If you remember, I said that each person could have a combination of these type of styles. So maybe at some point you could find two dominant person in the same team. Not both of them could be leaders. In this case, this kind of person needs, one of them needs to compromise. And at some level, some teams you would find two people. If you're not assigning one person to be the leader of that team, you will find a clash in opinions. Two dominant persons, both of them wants their way to go in the team, which creates a conflict within the team. So it's best for the team to be composed of different kinds. That's in the ideal world. But if it's not the case, I would say that the team needs to have a compromising and communication between them. So if you cannot take this role, maybe keep it to someone who knows they can take it and be the kind of second lead where you're supporting your team. Teams are about everyone working together. So you need to be a support to your team, not the opposite, just clashing with them. So let's say two dominant person, each one of them are going at the same thing. They want their own opinions to go. Remember that you're in the same team, you want the same goal. So this is where the steady person and the influencer person comes in handy. They tend to remind these people like, look, we're in the same team, we're trying to achieve the same goal, so let's work together.
Thank you for your answer. That really explained what I wanted to know. We have another question. How can you use the DiSC model to communicate with coworkers?
I can answer that too, since it's my
But I think I'm
my
gonna take that question.
it's
If
for
it's okay with you, Amira.
yeah, sure.
Okay. So I think to use the DiSC model efficiently to communicate with coworkers, you'll have to first identify and understand their behavioral style and see how they approach leadership. Then when you recognize that, when you perceive how they approach management and leadership, you maybe can use what you learned in this webinar to recognize the DiSC personality type of your coworkers, and know how they communicate and what motivates them, to finally learn how you can adapt your own personality type to better match the needs of your team, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Asma. Amira, do you still want to add something?
No, she answered the question very perfectly. Thank you, Asma.
Okay. Thank you, Asma. We're going to move to another question. How to guarantee an efficient and peaceful workplace given the different natures of the profiles shown?
If it's okay with everyone, I can answer. So, Ali, how to guarantee an efficient and peaceful workplace? This goes into the aspect of communication, and coordination between the team. If you want a peaceful and efficient, you need to communicate your thoughts clearly and straightforward. Do not keep any thoughts to yourself. Do not say to yourself, oh, I can just perfect this after, or do this after, or tell this person after. No, if it's a meeting, you state your own opinions, you be clear about what you want to do or say, and be clear about yourself. How to communicate stuff is really important because this is how you get to know each other and how you coordinate. If this part doesn't work for you, it's not gonna work for you later. I'm just saying, if it's now, it's not. It's gonna be never. Just say whatever you want to say. So an efficiency is gonna be about the coordination. Whenever there is a coordination meeting, you have to go about your opinions. This role is not going to be good for me, so I need to be placed in another role just to keep it going. And this is how you create a peaceful and efficient workplace.
Thank you, Amira. I would also want to thank our audience for all their comments, and for thinking that our topic is nice, that the presentation was well made. That's really encouraging. We have a question. Hi, dears. Thanks for the presentation. One more question, please. How do you think work from home can impact career development in a long-term perspective? Um, I don't think we really tackled that in our webinar.
No,
That
but I don't.
so
We can discuss it though. It has to do with the disk model. Let's take it from a perspective of what we talked about: conflict management, Narjiss point, Asmae, how to harness working with everyone. Since you're working away from home, you're kind of losing that skill if you're not using it. So if working from home is impacting your career development, in this case it's impacting the skills you have as a person or individual. You're not talking more, you're communicating your thoughts through text instead of using your voice, and you forgot your body language, how to use it. So that limits kind of the communication aspect and how to use your own traits. So this is what I think about this topic. We're sorry we can't answer more. It's about career development. It's not the topic we covered, but thank you for the question though.
I think that in general, working from home would have a negative impact on the long term, since,
Yes,
as you said, we don't really communicate face to face with others. It We don't use the same skills anymore. We kind of become lazy in our work for different reasons. We're not as productive as we were when we go
true.
to our work, and we actually have other coworkers with us in the same room, which can be very motivating. So I think that in general, it has a very bad impact in the long term on
I,
our career development.
I agree with you. The most impacted people in this kind of aspect where you work from home are the people oriented people.
Hmm.
The extrovert, they're mostly the ones who are being impacted negatively in the long term because that their traits are being dulled as time progress. So they forget their skills, how to be around people. They want to be around people, but now they're trying to work with what they have to adapt. So I hope this pandemic ends soon so everyone can go back to the normal instead of this new normal. But thank you, Mehdi, for your question.
We have another question. Can you please talk about what are each profile's weakness points? I think that Amira would answer that since she gave us the characteristics of each personality type.
Yes, of course. So for the dominance, their most weaknesses would be about lacking patience. Their concern for others is non-existent. They are more focused on the goal, so they forget about everyone else. They are skeptics and they fear being vulnerable around their teammates. This is for the dominance, I think. And for the influential people, as I said, they're more people oriented. So in this pandemic, for example, they lose that social aspect. So they're more kind of dulled down. They lack a candid and blunt approach, and they have a fear of disapproval in the case of being in the spotlight. And the steady people, as I mentioned before, but it was quick, they fear the change. They are resistant to the change. They like the stability of the situation and environment. So that changing would affect them kind of negatively unless they know how to deal with it. They're hesitant about stating their opinions and they fear offending people. Like if they tend to overthink before they answer, unlike the dominance people. They want to get along with everyone and be collaborative. So the fear of offending others can be crippling for them. And lastly, the consciousness, they fear the criticism, they fear being incorrect. So that's why they take the longest time to answer questions or get back to you about anything. They tend to look for quality in their answer and base everything on data. So this is why they fear the criticism and incorrectness because they spend so long looking for the right answer and the best quality answer to give you. So this is for each profile. And if you go into each side profile, each one of them will have a combination of these weaknesses. So I advise everyone to be more conscious about which type they are, which dominant trait they have, if it's one of the desk traits, or if you're more into the combination. You need to look out for the double of the weaknesses, not just one trait weakness. So, yeah, I hope this answers your question. Thank you very much.
We have another question. How can we recognize a personality type easily and quickly? I
Oh,
believe that would have to do with how each personality type reacts to situations. For example, within a team, they would react a certain way, and that's what actually Asma tackled in her part. How each personality would like people to talk to them, and how they work in general. So within a workplace, I think it would be kind of easy to recognize each person's personality type, but the easiest way would be for them to actually take the test and share their results with the other coworkers to keep that healthy environment.
true.
Does anyone want to answer this question more or add something?
Yeah, I think recognizing that personality, I think you should follow the segment that Asma talked about if you want to harness more about that thing. And the easiest way is to follow that little activity that I used with my colleagues. Just look if the person first extrovert or introvert, then decide if they're task oriented or people oriented. This is the quickest thing you can do.
So now I'm looking for other questions. What would be the best DiSC profile for you? What is the best profile for a manager?
Hmm.
I
I think
don't
since
I don't believe that there is a best DiSC profile. Each personality type has their strengths,
true.
characteristics. So if you put the right personality type in the right place, they would do their job perfectly and they can even adapt to the situation they're in. So
Hmm.
personally, I don't believe there's something like a best DiSC profile. But I think that we can actually talk about what is the best profile for a manager.
Hmm. I believe, as Hiba said, there is no ideal disk style or profile for one person. You have a predominant kind of trait, and there's the sub trait for you, which supports you. But you can display two predominant behaviors at the same time. One predominates the other, or they could be collaborative, as I said, for the 12 kinds. For example, the perfectionist, the risk taker. And I believe the best profile for a manager would be a task-oriented person, which could be either dominant, a mix of dominance and consciousness. This is the best thing for a manager. They're more task-oriented, and actually, I'm sorry, I would go with dominance and influence. They are managers, they need to manage the teams. So I would say dominance and influence. A risk taker, if I may say. They need to make decisions on the spot. So, yeah, I would say the best profile for a manager as a final answer, a D and I kind of personality profile. That would work the best. They focus on the task, they focus on the people, and they're active.
Mhm. We have another question. What would happen if two leader personality type are in the same group and none of them wants to back off? How do we deal with it? I think we can use one of the conflict management styles that Narji shared with us. She explained
Exactly,
like the
Hiba.
different
That's what
styles.
I was going to say. If we are in a team where are two people who don't want to back off, of course we have to compromise. The best strategy in this way is to compromise. We win a little bit and we give up a little bit, and we have of course to have someone who will help them, a mediator. A mediator can help the two parties first find their disagreements and find a point in the middle where they can, of course, they can agree both on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Narjis, for your answer. We have another question. Does the board think this test can be used outside of its practical purpose as a means of self-exploration?
I think I can answer that. Well, absolutely. I think that any personality type could be useful for your own knowledge so you can know more about yourself and, control how you act and, give a better perception of yourself. So, yeah, it's not only about the workplace. You can use that even for your own
I agree with you, Asma. Indeed, this test would actually let you know more about yourself. As we said, each personality type has their strengths but also weaknesses. So it can always be good to actually know ourselves better, know our weaknesses, so we could avoid actually conflict by knowing ourselves better, to avoid certain situations that would make us, for example, irritated or stressed, or where we could actually react badly to a certain comment that someone gave us. We have another question. To what extent is this test an index of knowing the other?
Mm, it could help for a certain extent, a superficial extent, I must say, because not everyone shows everything on the spot. So it helps you to know a little bit, enough just to deal with this person for that amount of time. So I'm gonna say in a percentage, and this is from my understanding and my research of this topic, I'm gonna say a little bit around 50%. And the rest of knowing about the others, this is on you. You need to communicate with the other person to know more and how to deal with them, what they like and dislike.
Mhm. We have another question. What are the career paths for each personality?
Hmm. Um, if it's okay with everyone, I can take this. There is no career path set for each one because you can find each personality in a different kind of career path. So there's really no set career path for each one. But I would say dominant personalities or whoever has a predominant kind of personality, they would go with something along the way of leading. They would be managers, they would be leading teams, CEOs, something like this. If it's an influence, I would say something to do maybe with marketing, perhaps, influencing, like right now in social media, giving ideas, reviewing, something like this. So something to add with influence show. Steadiness, they're more of a collaborative kind of personality, so I would say they would be the support of the team. I'm not sure which kind of career path actually would suit them more, but I would think they would go with something therapeutic, so maybe in therapy or something like this. Consciousness, I would say analytics, so they are decision makers, maybe, if it's something that suits them. They can be an IT kind of career path or problem solving teams, consultant, maybe. So this is my extensive knowledge on this part. Thank you for the question, though.
So I think we don't have any more questions anymore. Thank you very much for all the information given during this webinar. This will help us a lot once dealing with our guests. Our goal from this webinar was to actually make it useful and helpful for our audience, so we're glad we achieved that goal. We want to thank all our audience for staying with us till the end. And I want to thank our guest speakers for sharing their knowledge with us today and answering questions that were given by our audience. All our audience can share this webinar with their friends, family, coworkers to share this knowledge and to encourage others to use the DiSC model to deal with conflicts. So if we don't have any more question, I think we will end this webinar here. Again, thank you so much for attending our webinar and for all of your questions. Thank you for your interaction, and I hope we will be able to present another webinar that will be helpful for you.